Greetings. I am Reverend Patricia Sunday. Our ministry website, our YouTube videos, and our books can be viewed at www.sundayministries.com. My topic today is the exploding interest in the four blood red moons coming up during this year and next, 2014-2015. They have been popularized by two men, one a Messianic Jewish believer, Rabbi Mark Biltz from Washington State. Mark Biltz was the first person led by God to discover them and their significance, since they will and have all fallen on a Jewish holy day. Also, this is the 8th set of this configuration, falling on the Lord's feast days since Jesus ascended, which corresponds to a special Jewish time period known as the Shemini Atzeret. Secondly, a popular evangelical preacher, Pastor John Hagee from Texas, quickly picked up the opportunity to write a book on Rabbi Biltz's discovery. I too was a follower of the discovery of Rabbi Mark Biltz, as not only was I in the process of writing the Nostradamus books, and that information came at a time that God designed for the information to reach me. But I myself am also engaged in a Messianic Jewish ministry, although to my knowledge I am not of Jewish or Hebrew ancestry. My forebear was the famous baseball-playing evangelist Billy Sunday, born in 1862 and died in 1935, before I was born. I was recently reading a Christian magazine that was disputing that these four blood red moons could be that important, because Jesus said he was coming back after the tribulation. And according to him and most all Christian preachers today, the tribulation has not happened yet. Well, I want to know, if we have not been walking through a long and great tribulation over these last 2014 years, then what was the Christians being thrown to the lions in the Roman arenas, the Inquisitions, the Dark Ages, the Holocaust, our men maimed, killed, and destroyed by fighting all the wars, and the dropping of the first atomic bombs all about? These were all persecutions and spiritual war on Christians and Jews, and also by those calling themselves Christians and Jews. The prophet William Branham cleared all this up when he was alive by placing the opening of the 7 seals in the proper timeline order and perspective. I have a chart of that timeline in my book entitled Nostradamus, Branham, and the Little Book. The prophet William Branham was the angel messenger, the 7th church angel messenger to the Laodicean last day church, and the 7th seal opened at his death. 1/2 hour, according to God's timing, is 30 years according to man's timing. Then occurred, as the silence of the lambs of the Christian church took place, as moral depravity and lawless anarchy began to take over the world. This book covers the ministry of both of these prophets, Nostradamus and Branham. I have written 2 books on the prophet Nostradamus and have a chart in both of these books in which I believe the Holy Spirit has shown me some interesting revelation pertaining to the 4 blood red moons in 2014-2015. I believe I am the first person to ever write on Nostradamus from a Christian perspective and not from an occultic perspective. Between these two prophets, the Lord has given me hidden end time information. It was there in the Bible all the time. It was just not yet time for it to be unveiled according to Daniel and Revelation. It was interesting to me that this Christian preacher, whose magazine I was reading, could see that there was a separate event which takes place after the tribulation. The prophet Nostradamus reports and reveals information on that separate event. So this preacher has gotten close, but does not see how it all fits, simply because he, like most other preachers, are taught that the seals fit only during the last 7 years, and they do not. They span all of the history since Jesus ascended back to heaven. The prophet Branham showed where they fit, and I describe all of this in the book. And it makes the book of Revelation a whole lot easier to comprehend. This Christian preacher writer also sees a 1-year period where God pours out his wrath of the vials and the plagues. Wow. I was blown away. I have never seen anyone understand that part, except that it was delivered by the prophet Nostradamus in his 2 letters which precede his work over 500 years ago. If you study all the scriptures concerning a year, a month, and a day, you will discover this also. No one, to my knowledge, before me has ever attempted to interpret the letters of Nostradamus as I have from a Christian spiritual point of view. So given that this is a true Christian minister's magazine I was reading, it confirms even more to me that Nostradamus is correct. Many things that Christians have incorrect would be cleared up if they would just see that these 2 men were indeed Christian prophets with a last day message for the Christian church, and place events in their proper time order as they have described them. The prophet Nostradamus was a born-again believer in Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. He was of Hebrew lineage, and his family was formerly of the Jewish religion. They had to convert to Catholicism during the Dark Ages or be beheaded. So they converted. So see, this join our religion or be beheaded business has already happened once and probably will happen again by the same Catholic Church. He found his Messiah through this church because he was one of the few at the time who actually had access to the scriptures, since he was the doctor and spiritual advisor to Queen de Medici. The Bible was chained to the altar, and the people had to believe what was taught by the priest, much like the church today, both Catholic and Protestant. So he read the Bible for himself, and the Lord used him to preserve the truth for our time in history. Now, if you will just think of the prophet Nostradamus as a true Christian, then you will begin to see what the Lord has done through his writings. The word serendipity describes it perfectly. The word serendipity means an unexpected discovery occurring by design. The Lord had a message concerning this delivered during a recent church service which I attended, and I have it on my website if you care to read it. So the Lord has used the writings of these 2 end-time prophets to deliver to this handmaiden new discoveries that were designed by the Lord to be delivered in the end time, which is now. In the 2 books I have written on Nostradamus, I give the timeline chart which occurs during the 4 blood red moons of 2014-2015. My 2 books on Nostradamus are titled Nostradamus, Branham, and the Little Book. The little book in the title implies the little book of Revelation 10. And the other book is titled Nostradamus, Lost Pictures Unveiled, the Last Antichrist. That revelation is in another video. The revelation given to Nostradamus, Branham, and to me could not have come together by accident, but by divine design. Here's one of the major revelations, or a major revelation concerning these blood red moons, which no one to my knowledge has spoken about until the Lord showed it to me. Now listen and put your spiritual ears on. A true blood moon is not called a blood moon because they are red, because many full moons are described and viewed as being a blood red color. Hence the reason all full moons looking red are called blood red moons. But the definition of a true blood moon, according to Jewish theology, is the first full moon that occurs after the harvest moon. A harvest moon is so called because it occurs at the same time each year as the season changes, so that a harvest can be brought in while there is still enough light to see by. This description in itself is full of revelation, as this tells us that the Lord is about to gather in his harvest before darkness falls. In 2014, the harvest moon occurs on September 8th through 9th. It covers a two-day time period because of time delay from one side of the earth to the other. So the next full moon, according to the NASA moon charts, fall on October 7th through 8th, 2014. Listen, this is important. This is the very day Nostradamus has given us for the event which Christians call the rapture, which is, I believe, the same event as the second coming. And at this time, he will be putting his people in a special ark for our protection. I believe we will be taken up into the planetary system that has now come into our solar system, and I describe all of this, Planet X, Chiron, and Nibiru, in these books. There is only one other possibility that this could be if we are not caught up at this time, and that is that he will send power down on his people, and we will walk like Elijah did, and no one can touch us or harm us, and we will walk through that 1 year of wrath unscathed. God says his people are not appointed to wrath. This will be punishment for a sinful world. That will not pay attention or obey him. Nostradamus says that on October 4th, and I believe it's 2014, that Satan will be cast to the earth. I expect that this will be the invasion of Israel, according to the scriptures in Revelation 11:1 through 14. If this is the rapture and Israel is invaded, then you can count 3½ days after Israel is invaded to the catching up of God's people into an ark of safety in whatever form that takes. We will not be caught up into UFOs, spaceships, or a comet, but it will certainly be a supernatural occurrence or event. This could take the form, as I said, of a type of encasement around each believer as we walk out an Elijah power walk. But I truly believe we will be caught up, as Nostradamus' picture book describes. I believe when all of this happens, that a false flag event of UFOs descending on the world, which have been built by our governments to deceive the world into thinking there is a UFO invasion, could occur so that they can make the world unite under their one world order. Another point of interest is that yesterday's full moon occurred on Friday the 13th, and that is the last time a full moon will occur on Friday the 13th until 2049. This has to also be a sign for us at this time and in this time period. All of this prophecy is very involved and takes some time to read it, understand it, and assimilate it into your spirit. Many people have dismissed the prophet Nostradamus because of the occultism that the worldly prognosticators have written about him in, because that was the only vantage point which they could understand. Many people looked at the date Nostradamus gave of 1999 as the end of the world, or the rapture, and we have not understood why something like that did not happen at that time, because those of us who are watching for the Lord knew this was a close time frame. But what we and others did not see was that there are 14 years not accounted for, which were deferred on the calendar by rabbinical teaching and counting the time up to the Jubilee. It was to pick back up at a certain time. Nostradamus shows us that this counting period picked back up at the beginning of the end time 1999-2000 calendar year. That's why he specifically gave a date of 1999. Then, by adding these 14 years back into the calendar, it brings us to the years 2013-2014. Which brings us to the 49th year. Then adding 1 year of the vials and plagues poured out on the earth brings us to 2015, which is the year of Jubilee, which the Jewish calendar also brings us to for the Jewish people. A time when they reclaim all the homeland listed in the Bible that God gave them, which has been taken away from them. These 14 years, according to the prophet evangelist Branham, was 7 years for the Leah bride, then 7 years for the Rachel bride to get ready. Now the bride is ready to meet her bridegroom. And if you will view my second coming rapture video, I explain more on the timeline of when. This 14-year time period is explained in detail on pages 590 to 591 of my first book concerning these two prophets, Nostradamus and Branham. If you cannot afford to purchase my books through Amazon.com or AuthorHouse.com or any other bookstore, then you may pull them down off Dropbox from my website for free. To those who want to read them but can't afford them, or even those who don't want to spend the money. We, however, do accept donations to our ministry, as what we spend is large in comparison to what we take in. Time is real short. Please get ready to meet the Lord. Shalom.